Weston McKennie looks like it's all set and ready to go. He's going to go on loan to Leeds for the rest of the season, and Leeds has an option to buy him for 30 plus million. Yeah, exactly right. So Weston McKennie, I'm interested about this. I know that Arsenal was out there and we discussed whether he should go there or to Leeds. But Leeds, if they get relegated, this could be a bad decision. Now, he's only on loan. I guess he could go back to Juve. And Juve now with a 15-point deduction have a lot of work to do to try to get back into Europe. But what are we thinking about this move? Obviously, from a national team perspective, the more reps he can get with Tyler Adams and Brendan Aronson, I'm all for it. But he's going into a real pressure cooker there, Charlie Davies.
He is. I like the move because I just feel there's a lot going on with Juventus right now. And now he's going to be thrust into, he's playing every minute of this loan as long as he's healthy. And it's a good way to judge where he's at. What's his influence in the game? Because he's going to have to be massive for Leeds to stay up in terms of his aerial prowess on set pieces, if he can score a few, but just the transition game, winning tackles and then going forward. But he's got to be more efficient with the ball. He can't just dribble into spaces, things he can get away with in CONCACAF sometimes. And at times Juve, because teams are dropping so far off, teams are pressuring you. You're under pressure all the time. I love this move from the standpoint of how tough it's going to be, because Leeds, yes, they press a lot, but they're also under pressure. Teams are going after them. They're not sitting back. So sometimes it can be a track meet up and down. So it's a good test for us and for him to see where he is and how he fits into the Premier League.
Okay, Heath, let me tee you up with this thing, because I'm looking at Leeds' last starting 11 in the Premier League. I know they just won in the FA Cup, and congratulations to that for moving on to the next round. But against Brentford, when I look at they got Tyler Adams and Mark Roca in the middle, and then you have Brendan Aronson, Willie Gnonto, Jack Harrison, and Rodrigo. Where does he go? Where does he fit into this? Is it simply just a switch with Mark Roca?
I mean,
it's tough. Like I don't know.
I mean, he's not gonna go out onto the wings. It could be Gnonto somewhere in there within the three, but it's got to be one of the three. It's not going to be Tyler Adams either, as we know, because that's why Weston McKennie's heading there, right. Because we're getting our boys there. I am a little bit worried generally, because when I think about it, I was having this conversation today about, like, it's amazing how far we've progressed in terms of our player pool and the age that they are, that we've got a Serginho Dest that goes from 1 year of this to Barcelona to AC Milan. That's his trajectory, right? The next club's going to be probably a step back from that, but still a high tier. When you look at Pulisic or Weston McKennie, Schalke grinds it out, ends up going to Juventus, overperforming our expectations, and now he's going to Leeds. At what point does Leeds just become Fulham to us in the way that it always was? Right? It's a club that's fighting relegation. It's taking on the American quality of player that is basing the American quality player based off all of the Americans that played at Fulham, right? Smart, tactically very good, physical, technical, solid across the board. But at what point, is this a bad thing in terms of putting players into that world? Do I think it's good for players to fight relegation at some point in their careers? Absolutely. Is it a place that you go to develop? Absolutely not. It's not a development place, right? It's not.
But they don't play like a relegation team.
I agree with that. They're not Norwich. They're not like,
no.
It's
not like
for the best every week.
You watch teams that are fighting relegation where they bunker. There is no keeping the ball. There's no possession. It is literally counterattack, launch it, throw-ins, corner kicks. It's ugly.
True.
You're not developing.
And now they've spent $100 million. Don't play that way. They've spent $100 million. If they end up closing this deal, it's like, even beyond that at the end of the season. So they're spending money to do it right. My worry is that, not so much is it the right style of play, but what happens if Leeds doesn't break into becoming a West Ham or a Villa or a whoever that can just have a good run for a decade plus, go back to the days of Leeds being one of the bigger clubs in the Premier League? Or is it a reflection on our quality of player that the club that's coming in for him is a team that is, a 3-loss run away from fighting relegation for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I like this move. I like it. I think it's going to be a challenge, Chuck, and I'll let you take it from here. Yeah. But I still wonder how he fits into Jesse's system, because it's going to be a lot different than what Maxi Allegri was running at Juve. And then maybe there's some similarities because I know that Greg Berhalter obviously had a high pressing system and it'll feel more national team-esque, and obviously being surrounded by players that are on his team with the US. But I'm still curious about this move. I think I'm all for it, but I'm just kind of curious to see how he fits in and how Jesse utilizes him. But go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah. When you watch Leeds play, though, it's not that they're missing a midfielder. Of course, that will help. They're missing a goal scorer. They are so hopeless in front of goal. You watch them play.
Well, Bamford's starting to go score again, which is good. He's a
but they're missing a somebody they can depend on, because they do generate chances. They create chances. Not that they don't. They just don't have someone who they can consistently finish that they can depend on. I think that's where Leeds have fallen short. Is one, a goal scorer, and two, they open themselves up so much. There's got to be more of a balance with the way they play.
But that opening up, Charlie, is still a little bit of that fragility. Open. It's a little, but that's my worry, is that that's the fragility to me. That's always 50, 60 minutes. You're like, this is a top half of the table team. And then something happens where you're like, this is a team fighting relegation. And you see a very different side, like you said, where it's wide open. You're like, this feels a little bit more systemic than it is just a one-off of a game.
Because you can't just open yourselves up the whole damn game. You have to have balance. You have to defend too and lock it down. And sometimes that goes against your culture and what you're trying to build. But if you want to win games, you have to lock it down and defend at times. You can't keep it open the whole game, because if you are winning, it's 5-4. That's not going to give you consistent results.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting then how Weston kind of plugs in and fills some of those needs, ultimately what you're talking about, because they do need a goal scorer. And I do think he'll help out a lot on set pieces, which obviously alleviates pressure at times. And then defensively, can he do a little bit on that side too? So obviously think it's something to watch for. Can't wait to see Jesse Marsh's official comments when it becomes official, to hear what he's going to do. And then obviously seeing him in the Leeds kit is going to be pretty awesome as he's lining up with Tyler and Brendan. All right, let's get to final thoughts as we close up the show. I'll go with Claudio Reyna stepping down. Austin FC, nobody saw that coming because something had to happen. But yes, another scalp in this whole crappy situation has been taken. And I don't think it'll be the last one. I think Greg will be next on the list of someone that's going to have fallout from this. But whatever you think about McBride stepping down, Ernie Stewart moving on, Claudio Reyna now stepping down, I don't think he's going to take the sporting director role at U.S. men's national team. That would be kind of awkward times a million. So I wonder what happens now with his career and all this type of stuff. But that's a final thought that I'm just going to leave kind of trailing out there, because then it's another situation I'm very curious.
What a final thought that was.
Yeah, my final thought is I agree with you, Jimmy. A lot going on.